So there are currently about 13 wide receivers on the roster because it's 90-man. A bunch of them will play special teams. They'll all do a bunch of different things. But you'll probably end out with 5, maybe 6 receivers on the final roster. If you end up with 6, you got to have guys who are contributing on special teams. Right now, I think there are probably 9 guys that have a legitimate chance. I know I get chills every time I even say 9 because it makes me think of Romo.
9.
There are probably 9 guys I think that you can reasonably say are in contention to make the roster. So, and some of them obviously are solidified. Ceedee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, Michael Gallup, Jalen Tolbert, Kevontae Turpin.
You just said yesterday Turpin was probably going to be out of
He's
here.
in the mix, though.
Okay.
He's somebody who can still get his way on here. Jalen Brooks, the 7th-round pick from South Carolina, Simi Fehoko, Dennis Houston, and then the undrafted free agent, Jalen Moreno-Cropper. He's a guy he's the one undrafted free agent this year who has a chance to stick. It's going to be tough. I would imagine he's going to be more of a practice squad guy because of how full the room is in terms of just with bodies that they like. It's not necessarily the deepest group and guys that you feel as good about as maybe the receiver room was 4 years ago when it was, Cobb, Gallup, Amari. You also had, Cedric Wilson that you liked. It's not deep like that, but they have a lot of guys that they like. It's similar to what we were talking about yesterday with the running back room.
Everybody has everyone has rooms that they like, And
yeah.
That's this time of year, right? We nailed the draft.
We nailed it.
We nailed the draft. We got our guys.
Mm-hmm.
We got all of them. How many do they usually keep?
5 or 6.
Okay.
It just depends on the year. So Brandon Cooks, Michael Gallup, Ceedee Lamb, all 100% on. I'm going to say Jalen Tolbert, 99% on.
Yep.
Just because I'm going to leave the 1% chance that if he goes into camp and he still does not have it figured out, I don't think they want to waste time. But I would imagine he's on. So basically you have 1, maybe 2 spots left for Jalen Brooks, Simi Fehoko, Dennis Houston, Jalen Moreno-Cropper, and Kevontae Turpin. And so I think that's wide open to any of them. I know a lot of people want to put Turpin on and say, oh, Kevontae Turpin, he's here. He was too good in the return game last year. They really like Deuce Vaughn and think Deuce Vaughn can contribute on special teams like we talked about yesterday. And so if that's the case, what is he giving you in the passing game? I think when people see him getting a lot of work in these offseason workouts, I think they're wrongly interpreting that as, look at how well they like him this year and how much they want to use him this year. No, I think they're putting him out there and going, let's see if he can do anything in this realm, because if he can't, then we'll just stick with Deuce Vaughn because we're probably going to have to run heavy on running backs and he'll have to do the kicks. And so I think a lot of what's going on with Kevontae Turpin's opportunities right now are just trying to figure out, hey, throw you in the deep end, can you swim? And so far during this camp, like I said, nobody dropped more passes during OTAs in minicamp that I saw than Turpin. He dropped, it felt like 1 a practice.
Felt like last year in the preseason, Dak had that early Dennis Houston chemistry. It felt like Fehoko was like flashing a lot during preseason practices, and then that went away. Both.
Yeah, and Fehoko, this is going to be a big year for him. Congratulations to Simi, by the way. New dad. He's a boy dad. He had a kid right at the end of minicamp. But
just like you're going to have another child.
Allegedly, yeah. Although mine's going to be a girl if you listen to Corey Majors.
That's because you're unable to produce a male heir.
Right. Ooh. That's exactly it. Simi,
is that an X or a Y? Which one is the male?
I don't remember.
One of the two.
Simi Fehoko is a guy who, like, he's got the size, the athleticism, all the traits are there to be really good. And he's flashed at practice, stuff like that. But I think they're just like, hey, it's year 3. You were a 5th-round pick. Like, it's got to click this year.
Yeah.
And I think I'm a big fan of his. I was a big fan of his coming out. That's somebody that I would like to see it work out for, but this is going to be a big training camp for him. He's going to be one of the big bubble guys that we're talking about at the end of camp, where it's like, or as we're heading into camp of, okay, this is a guy who can either play his way on or play his way off. And so Fajoko's going to be a big focus there. You mentioned that Dak liked Houston a lot and that he liked, that they had a chemistry and a connection and things like that. What was the biggest issue last year between the quarterbacks and the receivers?
Communication.
Ball placement.
Communication. Shut the hell up, Chop. This is my segment. You don't talk about my quarterback that way during my segment. No, you listen to Dennis Houston, the one comment that you would always get, we'd ask people at the team, be like, hey, what do you guys like about Dennis Houston? Because that was a guy who was active week 1 over your 3rd-round pick at receiver.
Yep.
And you'd ask them, say, hey, what is it they like? They're like, he's always
Same page.
He's always where he's supposed to be. He's never in the wrong place. He's smart. He knows where. So it's not even that he's super athletic or, oh man, you just see the way he runs routes or anything else. A lot of the receivers will tell you they like his releases. So the releases are basically your first couple of moves at the line of scrimmage to get initial separation. And so a lot of the receivers, Ceedee Lamb was a big fan of Dennis Houston in terms of how he released at the line of scrimmage. But for the team and for Dak Prescott, it was, I don't have to guess. I keep having to guess if Jalen Tolbert's going to line up correctly. I keep having to guess if, this guy's going to run exactly the precise route where he needs to be. With Dennis Houston, he's always where he's supposed to be. And when you talk about the West Coast offense and the precision and the timing and everything else, that's going to be the biggest advantage for Dennis Houston, is the fact that the West Coast is all timing based, and that's where he excels. So he's got a chance to stick on this roster. I think Jalen Brooks has a chance to stick on the roster, receiver, their 7th round pick, because he can be a Noah Brown type of player. He's a bigger receiver who was a special teams ace at South Carolina. It's a good run blocker. He's very much the same type of player that Noah Brown was. So I think he's sort of an insurance policy here there. Regardless, I don't think you're looking at any. There's a reason they haven't added DeAndre Hopkins or looked at any of this stuff. They feel pretty good that they can find 5 to 6 receivers that they like on their current group of guys.
DeAndre Hopkins getting a little reality check out there on the market.
Yeah, although, the Patriots seem really interested in him and seem like they want to get something done. And so, if he ends up in New England, that'd be great. The funny thing is that when you hear about the bad practice habits or how engaged he is, and I think Broadus had talked about, he reached out to his gang of 7 about DeAndre Hopkins, and that was one of the words they gave, is like, the dude doesn't want to practice. You don't know. We
never heard any of this before the last year. Any of it. Model citizen, Houston, playing with bums, future Hall of Famer, professional, none of this.
Yeah, which is interesting because, and I heard Cheech point this out yesterday on G-Bag. Everybody, we feel like, had a perception that DeAndre Hopkins was that guy at practice, because you remember the viral moment where he was going back and forth with D'Angelo Hall on Hard Knocks, and made him tear his Achilles, ended his career basically by practicing too intense. Difference there is obviously it's an inter team practice, and that always raises everybody's, competitiveness and things like that. Yep. But Broadus said that was a common criticism for Hopkins. And so I'd be interested to wonder, how well does that work out with Bill Belichick and the way that he generally likes his teams practicing? Is that going to be a fit? But they sound like they want him there. Probably be great for Mac Jones to have DeAndre Hopkins there, even though I think he's on a little bit of a decline. It's still probably helpful. At tight end, the Cowboys currently have 6 guys on the roster. You've got Princeton, Fant, Jake Ferguson, Seth Green, not the Seth Green from MTV 90s days.
Wait.
Yeah, not that one. Peyton Hendershot, Sean McEwen, and Luke Schoonmaker. To me, your 4 tight ends are already settled. You know exactly who they are. It's Ferguson, Hendershot, McEwen, and Schoonmaker.
Have we settled on a nickname for Schoonmaker? Because I'm not calling him that.
Schoon. That's what will take over in the stadium.
Scooney?
No,
nope.
we can't. I've said we cannot do Scooney because it reminds me of Scooney Penn, and I'll think of the early 2000s Ohio State basketball team. So we can't do Scooney. But
see, that's interesting that you know what your last name has to be in order for your name to be Luke and the chant not be Luke.
Schoonmaker.
Because that would be the one to go to.
Oh, okay. You could do either one.
Either one, but Schoon sounds cool
and
too.
Would you like to have a name where, even yesterday at the parade with Mike Malone, they were chanting Bruce.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want a name where I could first mistake it for a boo.
Well, that's true.
I don't like that.
Historically, this fan base has loved it, though, because the Moose chant.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I think that
when it comes to the tight ends, I guess I was a little bit surprised that we weren't just willing to move into Henderson and Ferguson. What was it? What was
Hendershot and Ferguson?
What was their combo nickname?
Hendershot.
Hendershot.
It was Fergushot.
Ferguson.
Hendershot's his actual last name, but Ferguson's
we didn't just move into Ferguson. I guess I was a little bit surprised that they felt like it was such a need. Based upon last year, we were like, okay, let Dalton Schultz go, and we're fine with these guys.
So when they picked Jake Ferguson last year, I know I see it on the Love of the Star YouTube comments. Whenever Brian and I are not Jake Ferguson is the new Michael Gallup. The way you felt like people talked about Michael Gallup, that's how fans are talking about Jake Ferguson this offseason. And like, why did we even draft somebody? Jake Ferguson can catch 90 passes and 1,400 yards and be an all-pro. He could be Travis Kelce. I think Jake Ferguson's a really good player. The Cowboys picked Jake Ferguson because they were worried they were going to lose all their tight ends. That was their discussion last year. They got to their pick in the 4th round. I don't think they necessarily thought this is exactly where we wanted to take Jake Ferguson or, oh, this is great value. I think they looked at it and said, we will lose every tight end if we don't pick one right now, so let's just pick Ferguson because we kind of like him. I think they thought of him as more of a 5th-round player. He was solid last year. He did some good things last year. This discussion like Ferguson's a better player than Schoonmaker to me is ridiculous because I think Schoonmaker's really, really good. I think Schoonmaker is plug-and-play, immediate tight end with really high upside.
Wow.
That, as long as he's healthy, as long as he doesn't have injuries linger like he had the foot issue, then I think he should start week 1 and be your primary tight end.
And rank the 3 in terms of like down the field threat.
From 1 to 3, it'd be.
Right, because we had all these anti-Witten discussions in today's NFL. So who are your down the field threats?
I believe Schoonmaker wasn't asked to do a lot of it at Michigan, but I believe given the skill set and the traits that he has, it would be Schoonmaker, Hendershot, Ferguson.
And is Schoonmaker the best athlete?
Yes. Schoonmaker is an absurd athlete. Now, when you look at like 40 times and stuff like that, you'd probably look at it and go like, oh, okay, that doesn't look that impressive. But when you factor in the fact that he's 6'7" and 255 or whatever, wow, his testing for his size is absolutely insane. And so I think Schoonmaker is a guy who's going to be your number 1 primary threat. He's somebody that, depending on how this offense breaks out, depending on the opportunities he gets, if they needed him to, if they really wanted to feed him, he could be capable of like being a 1,000-yard receiver his first year if they wanted to give him that kind of a workload, because he's reliable hands. He's a good athlete. He's a precise route runner. People keep talking about how wiggly is he in the open field and like, oh, I don't see it. Again, it's not what he was asked to do a lot of at Michigan. A lot of the setups for him, the routes weren't going to allow him to do that stuff. But you do see glimpses on tape of, okay, there it is. You can couple it with this and do this and that. And Lunda Wells, the tight ends coach there, is really excited about Schoonmaker. He's really excited about all 3. And even McEwen. McEwen's a guy who's got a lot of respect from the tight end room and the coaches, and specifically Dak Prescott. They think very, very highly of him. So tight ends, I think, are kind of an easy pick, but we'll keep an eye on the receivers and which of those 9 end up being there in training camp.